Good morning.
So, can I assume that everyone else can hear? I think we will. Okay, great. So welcome to webinar 3 of the EUdatathon 2017. This is the final webinar of a series of 3 that we have run to help you prepare for a proposal for the Datathon. Now the deadline for this Datathon is now the 15th of October. It was the 8th of October. We extended it to basically use a lot of time, and because we saw that the past webinars were quite successful. We saw that from the questions and the number of views of the recordings that we put online. So let me just give you the program for today's webinar so you can plan your listening time. Very shortly, my colleague Simon Stoyer will say a few words about the Datathon we're organizing with the Estonian presidency, and then he'll give a quick overview of the EU Open Data Portal. Then at 11:45, we'll move on to Olivier Houvins from the Commission Directorate General for Budget. He'll present the financial transparency system. At 12 o'clock, we will then invite Willem van Gemert to take the floor to present some important metadata from the Publications Office. Next, at 12:15, we'll have Fulgencio San Martin, who will explain how to consult EU law data using Sparkle queries. At 12:30, we'll then close with a presentation of the EU Whoiswho, that is the staff directory of the EU institutions. So now I hand the floor over to Simon Stoyer.
So, good morning also from my side. I want to show you a little bit about the data portal as such. So, we represent the EU Open Data Portal, and one of the main reasons you do this Datathon is you want to use one dataset, at least one, from the EU Open Data Portal and build an application with it. So I want to show you how you find your data. It's basically really simple. It's data.europa.eu/EUODP. So you could search for, like in any search box, you can browse by datasets, by subjects. You can also see here most viewed datasets. Or if you want to say, okay, I want to do something about European Parliament data or data from the Committee of Regions, so you can choose whatever you want. For you as developers, there are 2 tabs or 3 which are really important. The first one is the Applications tab. Here you can find applications which already use EU Open Data, and you can see what they've done good, what could be better, what things are missing. So this Applications tab could be a site of inspiration for you if you don't know yet what topic you want to cover. The next thing is linked data. So you could use our Sparkle endpoint and search for the metadata you want. See here on the right also some sample queries if you don't know how to write a Sparkle query. And the last thing, which is really important if you want to develop an app, it's called the Developer's Corner. And here you can read everything about our API. So it's a CCAN API, and please find here the documentation about the API. And for example, you can use Postman to fetch the data you need to make, for example, also a live application, which is really nice. Just to give a few words about the webinars as such. So on our dedicated Datathon web homepage, you can see the previous webinars, and you can also check if there are topics which you like, and please watch it again or download even the presentation. And yeah, you can also find the then in the afternoon the presentation from today, the video of today, if you want to watch something again. The next important tab is the Final Event tab. Here you can see really a draft agenda of the event. It's on the 16th November in Brussels. And you're more than welcome to join. It's free. And you can register here as a visitor. For you, the most important thing maybe is the registration for an app submission. as Clem already said, you have time till the 15th, so till Sunday. And we don't want to know so much, we just want to know the idea so that we can shortlist you. So as you can see here, we want to know what is the challenge, what data you use, and how you would develop it. Just to summarize it, you can register your team, or you can also register alone. You don't need to be a team until the 15th. 1 week later, we will notify you if you're shortlisted or not. And if yes, you have time to submit an application until the 12th of November. And you will be invited to Brussels, 2 persons, to the final event in Brussels. And the winner of the Datathon will also win 1 week later a travel to Versailles in Paris for the Big Data Forum. So I would say we can hand over.
Right, thank you very much, Simon. Yes, so just to repeat what Simon said there, that you just have to use one data set from the EU Open Data Portal, so you can match that with lots of other data sources, so that makes it a lot easier. And as Simon said, don't worry, you do not need to have a fully fledged app ready for the 15th of October, which is very close. We just want the ideas first of all, okay? And we can also help you a little bit too, okay? So that's probably it from us.
Yeah, with help we mean especially if you want to have a specific data set from a specific data provider, we can search for contacts. If you have questions about a specific presentation, we can give you the contact. Or if you have questions about the API or Sparkle, please write us. We have a specific mailbox for it. It's here, Datathon at publications.eu.
Olivier?
Yes. Good morning.
Would you maybe like to start now?
Yes. Can you see?
Are you ready?
Can you see my screen?
Are you ready to start perhaps a bit earlier?
I am ready to start earlier.
Okay.
I am now sharing the screen, if you can see it.
Okay. Shall I just introduce you a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Olivier Huvens, he's from the Commission Directorate General for the budget. So this is quite an interesting presentation because we wonder how is EU money spent? That's a very recurrent question, and more particularly, how are grants and other forms of support awarded? Who actually gets the funding? So this is where the financial transparency system comes into play. So over to you, Olivier, please.
Thank you, Glenn. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the financial transparency EUdatathon. Let me first begin by explaining what is the financial transparency system.
Sorry, Olivier.
Yes?
I'm sorry to stop you. Could you maybe turn up the volume? If you can.
Okay.
Speak louder.
Or just try to get closer to the mic.
Like this?
Thank you. That's perfect, Olivier.
Okay, I'm keeping the handset in hand. So I will first start by showing you exactly what the financial transparency system is. It is an online database that is available on the Europa website and which provides information on recipients of EU funds implemented directly by the Commission, and the data has been available since the financial year 2007. What can you find here? You can find the names and location of thousands of recipients which received around 200 billion during this period. You can search on a recipient name, for example, Univer cities. You receive a suggestion of names. You launch your search, and you see immediately what is the total amount of commitments of legal contracts that have been made towards those entities. You can see the repartition by country, which is the responsible service, the Directorate General. You can sort by total amount. So see the repartition by programs, the repartition by recipients, and also the detail. So this is a huge commitment of 89 million. You see and have access to all the details, the name of the recipient, its address. So the information is rather precise. I go back to the start screen. We publish what? We publish recipients of grants, of public procurement. This is the largest part of the information that is made available. Prizes, financial instruments, budget support, and also external experts. It is possible also to restrict the search and look only for NGOs, look for a specific country. Launch the search. It is dynamic. You can modify the year. The search by NGO was only added in 2016. That is why you don't have any results for the years prior to this one. So why is the FTS important? It is part of a European transparency initiative that was launched in the year 2005. Before that, each DG provided data on recipients of funds in a separate way, in Excel files, in PDF files, and so the idea was to harmonize the presentation across all DGs. It is also a legal requirement. We need to publish financial year data by June of next year. It is a legal requirement for the Commission, and it is also one of the most important tools of the Commission to increase the funding transparency. We make it evolve. That was a screen of the website a few years ago, so we do our best to evolve it and add more interactivity to it. So why is it interesting? It is a centralized database. It contains around 400 commitment positions. A commitment position is the level of detail at which we publish. I perform a new search. So by example, for the latest financial year, for the general budget, there are 30,000 commitment positions. Each of them can have one or multiple beneficiaries. It is a rather popular tool. Every day we receive 400 queries, meaning there are 400 searches that are made every day. It is an average over the year. It is used by the general public, by researchers, by journalists, by members of the European Parliament, and by colleagues who simply search the tool to provide information to citizens. It produces already open data. It is possible to export the full data set in CSV, XLS, and XML format. It is also possible to download the full data set on the Open Data portal. And now I will explain you a little bit how do we produce the FTS data. We managed to make it a central database because we derive information from the Commission's financial and accounting application, which is called ABAC. Basically, we get information from our data warehouse. We select the relevant set of data. We exclude some commitment types, by example, for different management mode, like shared management mode, for which we don't have the final beneficiaries. It is managed by the member states, so this is not included on the FTS. We manage the publication of what is directly managed by the Commission. So we process, we flag all records that are valid for publication. We place all the information in a data mart, and then it is made available for the publication on Europa. There is also a huge exercise that takes place of reviewing the quality of, by example, the subjects. The data that we publish is, as I said, often reused by journalists, and the context information is important. The subject is a free text field, and they are revised manually by the different departments to make sure that we provide the best possible quality. The danger is if we don't provide specific information, then there is a lot of room for interpretation, and sometimes it is a little bit fantasist interpretations. What are the limitations of the tool? It is clearly advertised on the web page that we can only provide information on recipients of funds directly managed by the Commission, and that is around 20% of the total EU budget. We cannot provide information for the remaining 80% because it is a part of the budget that is managed by the regional or the national governments. What we do have in our accounting system is a bulk commitment for each member state, but the final recipients are only present in their databases. That is why they publish themselves this information, and it is not yet available here for the FTS. It is sometimes difficult to perform a search on categories. We receive questions from the public. How much did we spend on consultancy? How much funding was awarded to universities? So universities, the search can be made in a few steps. If for the beneficiary name you mention university, of course you need to know how to call a university in the different languages. Universitat, universita, université, university. So it takes a bit of time, but it is possible to perform such a search. You can also perform a query on the subject of the contract. For example, Galileo. But it remains nonetheless a limitation. Since last year, it is possible to perform a search on NGOs, non-governmental organizations, although we base this classification on the self-declaration by the entity. There is no agreed definition at EU-wide level of what is exactly an NGO, so we base ourselves on a declaration by the entities. The only condition is that they have to be not for profit. That is based on the legal entity, and so this information is of a good quality. Another limitation is the difficulty to compare with other source of information, because what we publish is a legal obligation that is signed in a selected financial year. It will be followed by payments over a few years, or it can be over 3, 4, 5 years, and recipients of funds might publish on their websites amounts that they receive on a yearly basis. We sometimes receive queries from the public. This entity, this NGO, they mention on their website that they received 100,000 euro. On FTS, it is mentioned that they received 400 euro. Is there fraud? Is there a problem? So comparability is an issue. More and more, as we will be able to link data in the future, it will be important to keep that in mind and find a way to address it. An important limitation is that the repartition for each recipient is not always known. I can show you an example of what the repartition can look like. Okay, we'll make a new search. So in those cases, the repartition is known and published, but depending on the type of agreement and always in accordance with the financial regulation, we sometimes only know the precise amount for the coordinator that will in turn be responsible to manage the repartition and the signature of the contract of the other recipients. So the repartition is not always known, and if it is known, it can also evolve over the lifespan of the project. A recipient can move away from a project and be replaced by another one, and this information will not be captured by the FTS as it is today. So again, sometimes an issue of comparison of information. What will be next? There is a project currently ongoing to specify a EU spending vocabulary that will facilitate the cross-referencing and interoperability of the information, and that will make the data more easily reused. And the goal is to publish the data as linked open data and link it, by example, with the EU budget. That will be done hopefully this year or next year. So what I had in mind, the aim of the EUdatathon is reusing European Union open data for jobs and growth. How can this translate in reusing the FTS dataset? Well, is there anything particular that the dataset could reveal? Could it be presented in a more interactive way, in a way that would provide more additional information to the citizen, especially if there are links made with other data? Would a mobile app offer other kind of improvements, maybe with geolocalization tools? What is important to keep in mind at every step is that the integrity of the data is essential, because we are providing information on recipients, on natural persons, on private entities. The fiscal administration of a country could have a look on FTS and see how much funding we declare and how much funding the entity itself declares. So it is very important that the data should at all time be accurate and consistent. And context information should always be provided when our data is reused, especially what is included, what is excluded. Here we only speak about 20% of EU expenditure. There are other databases that are available on each member state's website that could cover the full 100%, but when sharing FTS-related information, it's important to be really specific. Why? I will show you an example. The question: should we keep track and monitor the data that is being used? A few years ago, the Open Spending Organization used our FTS data and used a visualization tool. They didn't provide the context information, and here, if you look, you can see that the Research and Innovation and Research Executive Agency, they represent a large bulk of what is published on the FTS. When you compare it with the full EU budget in 2014, the heading 1A only represented 7% of the total expenditure. So again, if you don't have the context, you can have doubts about the quality of the information that is being published on the FTS. Here at the bottom of the screen, you see that Agri represents really a small fraction of what is published on FTS, because the bulk of agriculture is managed directly by the member states. So I will show you a little bit more from the website. We made efforts to provide as much context information as possible. In case of multiple beneficiaries, we mentioned that when we make a repartition by country, by example, let me take a new example. I will search for NGOs, see which countries receive the largest part of it. So we see here in UK, how should you read this data? There are 705 commitments where there is at least one recipient that has been classified as NGO. The total amount of the funding is 1.4 billion. 1.4 billion. It doesn't mean that the totality of that funding was allowed to UK and to NGO. No. only 500 million was allocated to NGO located in UK. The exact share might be a little bit higher because we don't always have the exact repartition by co-contractor. And this is part of the limitation that I have explained a few moments ago. I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now or at a later stage. You can always contact me by email. Thank you. I hope this was interesting for you and that you will be interested to reuse the data.
Right, thank you very much, Olivier, for that great presentation. So there's lots of things there, and it's true we need to be careful, in fact, how we use the data, and it's important to describe it in the right way. Your presentation underlines that very well. I'd just like to ask participants if there are any questions. Okay, so whilst you may be thinking about some questions, Simon.
Olivier, thanks a lot for this presentation. You mentioned this interesting number that 80% of the budget is spent by member states' budget, and it's not really shown. So maybe this could be an interesting point for app participants to start to combine your data with member states' data. What do you think about this idea?
That would be very interesting indeed, but it might prove challenging. By example, there might be different definitions of. It would be an interesting topic. We publish commitments. The member state might publish a different level of aggregation. There might be a challenge on the languages that are being used and the format. I hope that all member states provide information in an Excel format, but that could prove a very interesting exercise indeed.
Michael. Right. Okay, thank you, Olivier. Are there any questions? Because this is a very valuable presentation. In fact, you can do a lot with this data.
Yeah, hi, this is Michael from Open Knowledge Germany. I don't know if you can hear me or.
Yeah.
Hello, Michael. Hello.
Hi. I kind of been listening in here passively. I just wanted to encourage anyone to, if you do have time, what was mentioned before, the point that you might want to combine the FTS with other data on the other funds like the ERDF and the ESF and so forth. I mean, we've kind of looked into it with our work on the Subsidy Stories EU, where we tried to scrape all the data that was part of the ERDF, the ESF, and Cohesion Fund, and also try to combine it with the financial transparency system. And as Olivia mentioned, it's not that easy to combine them because they sometimes show different things. But often it's the same aggregation level. So I kind of like if you do it on a country by country basis, you might be successful with that.
Another point that is. Thanks for this comment. Another point that is interesting to mention that I didn't do yet. I hope you still see the screen. It is sometimes challenging to make a search for a particular beneficiary. If, by example, you are interested in the funding towards the Red Cross, well, okay, you start typing Red Cross. But then there is not only Red Cross. You have the Croix Rouge. Then you have So it's also challenging to get behind the public name of an entity to know which are all the entities that are linked. That might be interesting if there are some suggestions as how to make the link between a public name and all the legal entities that are behind.
Are there any more questions? Please don't hesitate. No? Yes. So you'll find this presentation on the web page that we've done. You'll find the webinar recording and also the PowerPoint presentation as well. And as Olivier said, you can contact him at any time. So thank you very much, Olivier, for that presentation.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye. So now we move on to the subject of metadata. What metadata does the Publications Office manage to help you? Have you heard of EUR-Lex or the many name authority lists that we manage? Could they be useful to you? I now present Willem van Gemert, who's going to talk about this. Welcome, Willem.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you very much for inviting me. So my name is indeed, I will pronounce it in Dutch like this, you know how it sounds. It's Willem van Gemert.
Thank you, thank you.
So I work at the Publications Office of the EU in a team dealing with metadata standardization. And so wait, where is the presentation? This chat. PowerPoint's here. Sorry. This one.
That's yours.
So this is it. So just two words. So why the Publications Office? Why are we working with metadata standardization? So as you may know, we are an interinstitutional service provider for the EU institutions and bodies. We assure the publication of EU information. So as such, we receive data from many different data providers. And so we have early on been faced with interoperability issues because of difference in data provided. So we have developed solutions internally initially, and we have extended this to also the other EU institutions and bodies. I would say that my team is specialized in creation and maintenance of what I would call value vocabularies, controlled lists, such as the authority tables, EUR-Lex, that I would like to highlight more in particular in this short presentation. One of the things is that the Publications Office is committed to maintaining these controlled vocabularies, so it allows you to reuse these vocabularies, and you do not need to maintain them yourself. So for instance, you will find the names of the countries, a list with the names of the countries and the labels in all official EU languages. And if something changes, for instance, we had some years ago that the Czech Republic decided to change its name from Czech Republic to Czechia. We updated this in this list, and then you can reuse this list. We also create lists, for instance, for when there are for certain projects, such as in the context of the DCAT application profile, we have created and we are maintaining these controlled lists. So I would like to, before going to show you where you can find them on the website, I will profit to plug the tool that we are using and that we are very happy that there is a new major version that has just been released, thanks also to ISA Square funding. It's VocBench, so it's a tool, an open source tool that is specialized for maintaining large-scale multilingual vocabulary. So there is a link on the website. Check it out. We are really very proud of this new version. So the first site I would like to show to you is the Metadata Registry. You will find it's a reference data repository, I would call it, where you will find data models and vocabularies. So the first thing I would like to show you is the so-called named authority list. There are 70 at the moment. So you can group them in several categories. There are some tables that are the, I would say classics, like the list of countries, the list of languages, currencies that are used by most systems. So each of these tables contain a unique identifier and then the labels in the different EU official languages. Then we have other more EU-related tables, such as the corporate bodies, which is the name of the different institutions and bodies, and also the evolution of them over time. So this is something which I think is a very interesting table, and we are working on linking this with other external resources, such as, for instance, libraries, and we have discussed about setting up a pilot project with Wikidata to allow linking the corporate institutions with the data in Wikidata. Other types, resource types, the different types of document you will find. Interinstitutional procedures, so the different procedures that exist in the EU, which allow you to, for instance, make links between data, between steps in the procedure, etc. And then we have also, for instance, some geographical information, like the administrative territorial units. So this, as the name suggests, are the names of the different territorial units in the countries. It is not equivalent to the NUTS. So the NUTS is the nomenclature for statistical territorial units. We are working with Eurostat on a proof of concept, and we hope soon to be able to make this available as well with persistent identifiers for the NUTS. Another interesting site to explore is table to explore is the so-called sites table, which lists the different buildings of the EU institutions and bodies. And what is new is that there is also a GeoJSON distribution of this table, so you can find the different polygons of the buildings and the addresses. So, with this, I move on to the next site I would like to show you, which is EUR-Lex. I have it. It's there. Voila. So, EUR-Lex. So, EUR-Lex is the multilingual thesaurus of the EU that describes the EU policies and activities. It consists of 8,000 concepts with label in all official EU languages except for Irish. It's organized by domain, so there are 24 domains, which inside have so-called microthesauri. These are the concept schemes, and inside the concept schemes you will find the actual concepts. So these concepts are used to classify and index information resources, such as legal data on EUR-Lex, but also, for instance, the general publications on EU Bookshop. EUR-Lex is used by information professionals around the world. It's used by parliaments, but also, for instance, commercial solution providers. We recently learned that EBSCO is using EUR-Lex in a search tool they are providing to their customers. So you will find EUR-Lex as well as the authority tables on the EU Open Data Portal. So EUR-Lex is one of the most popular datasets of the EU Open Data Portal. And what is interesting is that EUR-Lex has been aligned with several other thesauri. So EUR-Lex is, from its nature, a generic thesaurus that covers well many domains, but until up to a certain level. So it's rather high level. What we have done is aligning EUR-Lex with more specialized thesauri. You see the list here. And if we take, for instance, the alignment with AgroVoc, so it consists of mappings on concept level. AgroVoc is a thesaurus that is specialized in the agricultural domain. It consists of 32,000 concepts. So you can go much more into detail on in that particular field. And so EUR-Lex functions as a bridge between the different domains. So you can find all the solutions I mentioned to you on the EU Open Data portal by clicking on Controlled Vocabulary. You will find there the different tables that I mentioned to you. So before we move to the questions, you can also retrieve this data directly from the Content and Metadata Repository of the Publications Office in semantic formats in SCOS in RDF. My colleague Fulgencio San Martin will afterwards tell you more about that. If you have any questions.
Right, thank you very much, Willem, for that presentation that lifts the veil over the mysteries of our extensive metadata. Are there any questions? Simon, please.
Yeah, first, thanks a lot for this presentation. Maybe you can give a few words about multilingualism and consistency, because I'm not sure that everyone really understands the concept and what are the real highlights of EUR-Lex and metadata.
So, one of the characteristics, indeed, of these tables, and one of the challenges we have to face as Publications Office, because we are publishing all our resources in 24 official languages, is the identification, the unique identification of these concepts. And so that's why we have a persistent URI, which is language independent, and then we provide labels in all official EU languages. So that makes it very, I would say, interesting for reuse, because you can refer, by using the URI, you have a language independent solution, and you can, depending on the interface, the user interface, depending on the language you're in, you can decide to display the language of the end user. Simon, does this?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, because for you, if you want to develop an application, I think this could be really, really interesting, because you don't have to develop 24 applications. You can develop one application and call the language, and I think it's a huge advantage. So you don't need so much time, you don't need to struggle with languages, you don't need to struggle with different wordings, or how do we call parliaments or certain stuff. You can just call it, and you're always on the safe side. And maybe we should also highlight it's a free service, it's consistent, and yeah.
What I can add, I mean, it's in a way what my predecessor mentioned about the Red Cross. So for the EU institutions, the corporate bodies table takes indeed away this ambivalence. There is a unique way of identifying the European Commission, the different services, by using its identifier. And there are mappings with other codes that have been used. I think this table is still at the beginning of its I would say at the beginning we are still have not fully exploited the possibility of linking data with other existing resources to diminish the ambivalence that exists out there.
Are there any more questions? Are from anyone? If not, well, we will move on to our next presenter. So thank you, Willem. So in our last webinar, we presented EUR-Lex, and we presented how to find information on the website. So EUR-Lex, as you may already know, is It provides access in the 24 official EU languages to the authentic OJ of the EU. The OJ is the official journal, and to EU law. So that covers EU treaties, directives, regulations, decisions, and also consolidated legislation, and far more. This time, we'd like to explain how to consult that same information with a more semantic approach, that is with Sparkle queries. So now Fulgencio San-Martin will now present this. So Fulgencio, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Fulgencio San Martin, as it is said in Spanish. So what I'm going to show you is not always you have the possibility of consulting the data directly in EUR-Lex. So that is what you usually do when you are just a person consulting the legislation, but sometimes you need to automatize that. So you need your applications to access automatically to the EUR-Lex data or to any other publication data, but automatically. And there is one way in which you can do that, which is going to the source code HTML of EUR-Lex, but that is not very convenient, and that might change in the future, so it wouldn't be very easy to maintain. There is another way, and I'm showing you how to access directly the repository of EUR-Lex and all the other publications, which is called the seller, and therefore automatize your access to it. I'll show you a very short way of doing that. It's done with a specific type of queries called Sparkwell, and you can do the same and refine it or adapt it to your needs, and also do some others, so up to you. As you can see on the screen, there is an email where you can get more information, and also where you can try the same queries that I will be performing directly on the web page. So that is this first link that appears on the screen, and the use case that I'm presenting is just to know the number of European Union laws related to African countries. So the rest are just some documentation on how to do that, but I'm going directly to the point. So I'm getting this here, and okay, first we go to the website where there is this Sparkwell editor. Here you have a Sparkwell editor which is with a wizard, so you can go and select whatever you want, and there are different options. That is even easier than what I'm going to explain to you. That is why I'm going to the expert search. So from the presentation, I'm taking this. This is from the presentation, as you can see. I'm just getting the list of countries. Yeah, I see. No problem, thanks. And I'm completing it here. That's it. What I'm doing is basically these are some prefixes to get the information, to get shorter links for the information. And then once the codes of countries, this was presented by Willem a moment ago, and we want also the country names, not only the codes, and we want to filter them by this, which is we want them in English, because as Willem said, we have them for 24 languages. Here we are only getting them in English. We click submit, and there we have a list of countries. Here we don't have all countries. We only have 100. Okay, it doesn't get everything here. And I don't know why is this. It is not this. Well, okay. So the reason was because there was this limit 100. Okay. So, but you can get all of them. It's always a good idea while you are trying to put this limit on the screen. So there you have the list of countries. You can get them automatically, and you don't need to store them. You don't need to translate them. You only need to access via this form, which can be absolutely automatized. And the submission is just as a regular form submission in get post in HTML, and you can get the data in plain text or in JSON or in XML, up to you. So we are improving a bit the query, and what we are getting now is just the list of African countries. How do we filter by African countries? It is by adding this line, which says basically that we are filtering the code of the country that we have said that is, we want the code and the country name, and the country name is in English. So we are filtering them and saying that they must be in Africa. If you don't believe me, you take this and you go to EUROBUG, and you can filter them by any other label that you can find in EUROBUG. This was presented by Willem a moment ago, and you can filter them by anything that you want here. Not only Africa, but you can filter, for example, laws related only for climate change, for example. If we do this, we should get only countries which are in Africa. Right now, I don't know why it's this. Okay, doing it again. And I'm putting here the star. There we are. As you can see, all those are African countries with their official English name, including, for example, this one, Côte d'Ivoire, which doesn't have an English official name, though we used to name it Ivory Coast, but the official English name is not Ivory Coast. That is informal. Okay, so we wanted to not only get the list of African countries, but we wanted the list of laws that are published by the European Union related to African countries. And that is done by this other line, which relates, get me the laws, which are about this concept EUROBUG, which is this concept EUROBUG actually is the code of the country. And this is the key line. Here you put anything that you want here instead of this variable. The question marks followed by a name, those are variables, just in a regular programming language. And there you can get any concept from EUROBUG. And you can get all the laws that are related to that concept. So if I click submit, I get countries, and in this case there are only Guinea, because again I filter only the first 100. Okay, so if we take one of these laws, these are just links, we go to it, as you can see, this is a law from the 1990, and it's an agreement between the European Economic Community at the time, not the European Union, and the government of Guinea. That is still in force, I think. Actually, we haven't filtered. I really don't know if it is in force or not. We could filter that out as well, but that would be yet another property. Then we go to yet another step, which is this. Here I'm adding, instead of the star, what I'm doing is selecting the year, how it is done the year is here. So we say that this load that we have filtered here, I'm doing it in the right order, here it is, that this load that is about this Eurobot code, the country code, this law is published in this year. So we get the year. And also we don't get the laws, but we get the counting of the laws. So we get the amount. In order to get that, we must group them. Here is this line. We must group them by year and by country. You see? It's actually, you will find many similarities with SQL if you are used to SQL and Sparkwell. This is a special type of SQL, which is Sparkwell, and it's related only to this special database, which is a semantic database. We go for it. It will take some time because it's counting, it is adding. Okay, maybe there is an error in fasting, but I will show you the result. This is what it should have been. So this is the code, the Sparkwell code, and this is what you get at the end. So you get the name of the country, then the count of laws, and the year. So for example, for Central African Republic, 3 European Union laws were published in 2003. For Benin, there was only one in 90, and so on. For Benin, there was only one in 1984, and so on. If you add all of them, or you remove the year from here, what you could get is a list. And remember, this list you can get in text, in XML, or in JSON. And then you could do whatever you want with them. For example, this. This is a map which shows the African countries with that information. So what I've done here is convert the data from TXT to CSV, and then import them in a mapping application that there is online. It is called Carto. This is there are possibilities of doing this for free. And as you can see, here we have the countries that have the most laws published by the European Union in history since 1952 until now. And as you can see, those are the Western Sahara, this is Mali, this is Sudan, and so on. That is the result. That is something that you can do with the Cellar database very, very easily, just with a simple query like this. And then you can automatize, because you can get the laws, the number of the laws, whatever you want, any metadata related to a Eurobot concept or to any other thing from the Cellar database. A good thing is that the Cellar is semantic, and that means that everything is interconnected, and you can connect it also to your applications. So if you only need the list of the currencies, because you have an application which deals with banking, and you only need the currencies and the translation of the currencies to every European language, you have that in the Cellar. You only need to go to the authority labels, consult the structure of the database, which we call the ontology. Willem has presented both. Here you have the links, and go to the Sparkwell point and query it. In case you have any issue, just send an email to the EUR-Lex help desk, and we will try to solve it. That's it.
Thank you, Fulgencio, for that great presentation. Are there any questions? No? Simon, have you got a question?
Yeah. Thank you very much. About all these Sparkle queries, is there, or do you have some tips for people who are not so familiar with Sparkle, how they could learn it, or how they could get an easy access to develop an application?
Well, there are many options in internet. Of course, Google is your friend. But In case you don't want to deal with that and you want the Sparkwell already built, then you can go directly to this nice wizard that is created here in the website. As you have seen, I've gone to the main publications.europa.eu website and then to linked data. It is still ongoing. And there you can choose your choose your needs for a query. And that is one way of doing it. For example, you need the title and the author and of course the publication date. You put them there, then click next. My colleagues in the portal can explain this better than me, because here you start filtering them. I really don't know how this works. So they are better than me, but you can customize the results. So for example, the title can include something like fisheries. I don't know if there is a star here. Let's check. This is very good idea always to filter by a number of lines and not getting the millions of lines just for testing. And when you are sure that you want that, then you can submit it without any limit. It is still loading. Just for information, in the cellar we have 1.6 billion, and that is billion with a B. That is 9 zeros after this. Actually 8 zeros, because there is a point here. There are 9 zeros after this, 8 zeros after this, and that is the number of data that we have. The number, they are called tripods. That is the number of metadata that we have in the database as of October 2017. This is still ongoing because it's a very general.
And how can I add this result in an application or?
To your application, okay. There we should have. That's a very good question. I don't know. There should be the query here. Just send us an email and we will help you about constructing the Sparkwell query. Also, we are in the process of publishing a booklet that will be in eBookshop on how to deal with the seller Sparkwell queries. There will be examples. There will be how to use them, how to integrate it with your applications, and so on.
Okay. Can you just explain Seller just very briefly?
Yeah, the Seller is just. The Seller has two parts. The Seller is a repository, so something like a Dropbox, so a hard disk containing all PDFs, all publications and everything, but it's a database which is composed by this metadata that we are looking for here. And that is what is exposed. In the past, with regular databases, you know that databases is something like spreadsheets, something like you see on a table, you see, or with rows and columns and all that. Well, and those are very, very hidden, and only the good programmers can access them, and so on. It is not anymore. The Seller, the semantic database of the Seller, as you've seen it, it is taking some time. Yeah, here it is. So you get here all the laws and decisions by the court, which include fishing, closely related, blah, 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 blah. Maybe there is fish in somewhere there, yeah, here, but I don't know here, but, well, whatever. That is one of the problems about doing a query so general like this.
And if you can download, well, what are the formats? Okay.
Yeah, you get the results actually, not the query itself. And the query itself, actually, maybe here in editing Flint, you can get already the query. Yeah, that's it. So you get the query that we have created already there. So you can repeat it.
Perfect.
Yep. And there are even more things here. And this is not very optimized from the wizard. So I rather, if it is slow, please contact us because it will be much more efficient if you want to optimize them. What I was saying? I've lost the
Well, about the seller.
Oh, yeah, the seller. Yeah, in the past, these databases were very closed. Well, the thing is that this database with 1.6 billion, as you see on the screen, they are all exposed to internet. They are all online, and you don't need any user and password to use them. That's it.
Okay.
And if they have questions,
yeah.
your contact.
The questions and the contact are, please,
it's EUR-Lex.
there is this. On the website, with the information, there is this, the ontology, the authority tables, and we are preparing a website, proper website about the seller. There is more information about the REST API reference. There is also a REST API, which is not a Sparkwell. Those are the two main interfaces of the seller, but the main thing is that everything is public. You don't need any user and password. Those are, there you have all the publications of the European Union, all in reusable format, all open, and that's it.
And when I have a Spark query, can I call also the API and fetch automatically the data?
Absolutely.
Great.
And the contents as well, that is one very good question. If you are looking for some metadata to get the contents, so the PDFs. So for example, you are looking for the laws that are related to climate change. You do the query, you get the list of all the laws that are related and enforced. That is actually one of the examples in the future book. You get all the laws, and then you go to the REST API, and you download the PDFs in the language that you want.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Cool. You see?
Okay. Can we just maybe show some examples of how people have used some EU law by going onto our portal? Just very quickly, you know them as well, Whoiswho, I think.
I don't know what you mean.
To the portal, to the applications tab, please. So to get examples of how other people have actually made apps using EU law and also data from EUR-Lex, I'll go to our applications tab there. And we're getting more and more examples.
Yeah, those are actually examples of companies who are making applications and monetizing our public data. So they are getting our data and creating something on top of it, and they are creating companies out of that. So they are making money. You can refer to them to consult what they are doing, but basically they are relying on those two interfaces that I have just said, the Sparkwell endpoint and the REST API. All the information is in the screen of the PowerPoint, but they are doing exactly that.
Great, thank you. Are there any more questions? No? No more questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Whoiswho, for that presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Right, thank you. And so you'll find Whoiswho's contribution on our Datathon webinar page. Okay. So now we'd like to present to you the EU Whoiswho. Now I will take care of this because my colleague, who is a specialist on this, can't be here today. So let's just try to find the presentation. Great, thank you. Okay, so what is the EU Whoiswho? Well, the EU Whoiswho is basically the staff directory of the EU institutions. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about what data you can get from the EU Whoiswho, how you can reuse that data, and the help that you can find, and also the references. Okay, so the website looks like this. Okay, so as I said, so it's basically a staff directory. Okay, which has the organizational charts with all the details of the EU institutions, bodies, and also agencies in all the EU languages. So you'll find a tree structure. Okay, so that's how the chart is done. Okay, now what is in the EU Whoiswho? Sorry. Well, you'll find 6,000 sub-organizations, for example, the Cabinet of President Jean-Claude Juncker. You also have something, there are 45,000 examples of what we call membership. So that's examples, for example, where you have somebody having more than one role. So, for example, it can be the same MEP on various committees, or it can be like the director of a Director General who is also an acting head of unit. Okay. We have then 40,000 people. Okay. So, for example, Mr. Donald Tusk and so on. You can find 4,500 email addresses and 1,500 URLs to websites. And we've also recently been putting on photos, and now we have 2,000 of those. The data, well, okay, the data model is part of the common data model of the Publications Office, which includes the EU Whoiswho, but also the named authority lists and also EUR-Lex, as my colleague Willem just presented. The EU Whoiswho itself contains about 150 different metadata expressed in RDF, XML format, so for the semantic web. Most of them are standard ontologies, so you'll find SCOS, FOAF, person, vcard, and org. The type of data, well, there's little data, so it's the last names, the phone numbers, labels of organizations, numbers, so for example the order, codes and URI, e.g. the organization types, like DIR, which means directorate, or unit. Okay. So how you can access all of this? Okay, well, you can use the Sparkle endpoint, which is at publications.europa.eu/web API/RDF/Sparkle. So as you probably guessed, well, this allows you to perform rather complex queries. You can retrieve data in XML, JSON, HTML, Excel formats, just what we saw with Whoiswho. And yeah, you need to know the data model, so the CGM, the common data model, and deal with about 150 metadata types. And then you can also access it via the Seller API, which is what Whoiswho just showed us, okay, for the sub-level of organization. Okay, so you can use this for easily retrieving in XML the content of a given organization if you know its code and URI. It also gives you the direct sub-organizations and people of a given organization. You'll find that content is aggregated in about 10 metadata categories, and you can retrieve a linguistic version as you want, so English, French, or German, etc. Now, so you only find the full organizational chart of the European Commission. Okay, the other institutions are not yet full. Okay, so now to access it for machines and developers. Okay, so there we have the API sub-level of organization. So here you have some details about how to access that. And when you do that, the output will be an XML file containing a list of people and sub-organizations. For example, a person or a sub-organization. And then you can also query recursively the sub-organizations. For example, you see this example below. Okay, so to help you, well, there's a common data model that you'll find of the Publications Office on the wiki. I believe that people can access that, in fact. I'm pretty sure. If you can't access this first link, then please let us know. Then you'll find the named authority lists and the web tools that the presenter just showed, and the EU Whoiswho website, of course. Okay, and there you have the contact details. OP Whoiswho update at publications.europa.eu, or also info@publications.europa.eu. So that was a very quick overview of the EU Whoiswho website and what you can do with that data, in absence of my colleague, Xavier Dezemont. Are there any questions? Okay, so if there are no more questions, would you like to say something, Simon?
Show just again the registration.
Great, thank you. So we're just going to show you some details about the Datathon again, just for those who may not have got them. Simon, would you like to?
Yeah, so to finalize it, we would be really happy if you submit an application, just the idea, as you see on the screen. It's basically a one-pager. You don't have to have so much ready. We just want to see your idea. And you need to hurry up because you just have 4 days left, but it's still enough time. And all the presentations and the recorded video will be available this afternoon. That's it.
That's it, yes. So Simon just said, well, you can contact us, you can ask questions, we're here to help you. You can also send questions via the Twitter, just mention EU_open_data, and we can also respond like that, or also on LinkedIn and so on. We're here to help you, okay? And even after you have proposed and registered on the 15th, you can still ask us questions, and we'll be there to help you. So if there are no more questions, I'll leave you a few seconds, just in case there are some questions still. No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining this webinar. We may have one other recording, perhaps, but we'll try to let you know, okay? Maybe we'll be able to do that on Friday. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, great. That was great. Okay, great.